I used to believe happiness was a destination, a shimmering place at the end of the road, where everything would fall into place, a dream job, a perfect family, a life free from worry. Society told me that if I worked hard enough, if I amassed enough money, status, or love, I'd find that radiant glow of eternal joy. But one day, I stood in the middle of what I thought was happiness, and all I felt was a cold, gaping void. Have you ever felt that? Like you've been lied to? Like the world sold you a promise it couldn't keep? That's when I stumbled across Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher who didn't just question happiness. He tore it apart, exposing the raw, uncomfortable truth beneath the lies we're fed every day. I'm not here to give you a pep talk or a 5-step guide to bliss. I'm here to share a journey, one that began with disillusionment, led me through the darkest corners of my own mind, and left me standing face to face with the truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Schopenhauer didn't offer me happiness. He offered me something far more dangerous, clarity. And let me warn you, once you see the world through his eyes, there's no going back. You'll start to notice the cracks in the stories society tells you, the myths it spins to keep you running on a treadmill to nowhere. Today, I'm going to walk you through 3 lies society has drilled into your head about happiness, lies I believed, lies that broke me, and lies I had to unlearn to find something real. Buckle up, because this isn't going to be comfortable. But if you're brave enough to face the truth, it might just set you free. I first encountered Arthur Schopenhauer on a rainy evening, curled up in a dimly lit library, feeling like the world had cheated me. I was 28, with a decent job, a nice apartment, and a relationship that looked perfect on paper. Yet, I was miserable. I didn't understand why. That's when I found a dusty copy of The World as Will and Representation. Schopenhauer's words hit me like a punch to the gut. He didn't sugarcoat life. He didn't promise me happiness or tell me I was special. Instead, he looked at the world with unflinching honesty, describing it as a place driven by a blind, insatiable force he called the will, a restless, unending desire that keeps us chasing things we can never truly hold. Schopenhauer wasn't like the motivational gurus you see on social media, with their bright smiles and empty platitudes. He was a philosopher of the shadows, a man who dared to say that happiness isn't our natural state. It's a mirage, a trick society uses to keep us distracted from the truth. Life is suffering, and our endless pursuit of happiness only deepens that suffering. He argued that society feeds us lies, carefully crafted stories that make us believe happiness is just one achievement, one relationship, one purchase away. But it's not. And the sooner you see through these lies, the sooner you can stop running and start living. In this journey, I'm going to share 3 lies society told me about happiness, lies I bought into, lies that shaped my choices, and lies that left me empty. Schopenhauer's philosophy became my guide, not because it made me happy, but because it helped me see the world for what it is. And in that seeing, I found something more valuable than fleeting joy, a sense of freedom, a way to live without being a puppet to society's illusions. Lie number 1. Happiness comes from external success. For years, I chased the dream of making it. You know the story: work hard, climb the ladder, get the corner office, the fancy car, the Instagram-worthy life. Society told me that success was the key to happiness. Every billboard, every movie, every motivational quote screamed that if I just achieved enough, I'd feel complete. So I did what I was told. I worked 80-hour weeks, networked with people I didn't even like, and measured my worth by the number of zeros in my bank account. And you know what? I got there. I got the promotion, the car, the apartment with a view. But when I stood in that apartment, looking out over the city skyline, I didn't feel happy. I felt like a fraud. Schopenhauer would have seen right through me. He argued that external success, money, status, possessions, is nothing more than a temporary distraction from the deeper truth of existence. He called it the will, that restless, gnawing desire that drives us to want more, no matter what we achieve. You get the job, but then you want a better one. You buy the car, but soon it's not enough. The new phone, the bigger house, the shinier watch, they all lose their luster the moment you have them. Schopenhauer said this isn't a flaw in the system, it's the system itself. The will keeps us hungry, never satisfied, because satisfaction isn't the goal. The goal is to keep us chasing. I remember the day I got my first big bonus. I went out and bought a watch I'd been eyeing for months, a sleek, expensive thing that screamed, "I've made it." I wore it to a party, expecting to feel on top of the world. But by the end of the night, I was staring at it, wondering why I still felt so empty. Schopenhauer would have told me that the watch wasn't the problem. The problem was me believing that a shiny object could fill a void that no object could ever touch. Society lied to me, and I bought it. It told me that happiness was out there, in the things I could buy or the titles I could earn. But every time I reached for it, it slipped through my fingers like sand. The truth, as Schopenhauer saw it, is that external success is a trap. It's a game rigged to keep you running. The moment you achieve one goal, the will whispers, "What's next?" And you're off again, chasing the next promotion, the next purchase, the next validation. I spent years on that treadmill, exhausted but too afraid to stop. Because if I stopped, I'd have to face the question, if success doesn't make me happy, then what will? Lie number 2. Happiness is a permanent state. The second lie society fed me was that happiness is a place you can arrive at and stay. You've heard it before. Find your passion, and you'll be happy forever. Meet the right person, and your life will be complete. It's the fairy tale ending we're all sold. Get to the right place, with the right people, and you'll live in a state of eternal bliss. I believed that lie with every fiber of my being. I thought if I could just find the perfect job, the perfect partner, the perfect life, I'd lock in happiness like a safe deposit box and never lose it. But life doesn't work that way. I learned that the hard way when I fell in love. Her name was Sarah, and for a while, she was my everything. When we were together, I felt alive, like I'd finally found the missing piece of my puzzle. I thought, this is it. This is what happiness feels like. But then the fight started. Little things at first, dishes left in the sink, forgotten plans, but they grew. The spark faded, and I watched the person I thought would make me happy forever become a stranger. When we broke up, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was lost. I'd put all my hopes for happiness in her, and when she left, she took them with her. Schopenhauer would have nodded knowingly. He argued that happiness isn't a state you can sustain because life is driven by the will, a force that thrives on desire and lack. The moment you satisfy one desire, another takes its place. You get the job, but then you want a raise. You find love, but then you want it to be perfect. The will doesn't let you rest. It keeps you moving, always wanting more. Schopenhauer called happiness a negative state, a brief absence of pain, not a positive presence of joy. The moment you think you've arrived at happiness, the will creeps in, whispering that something's missing. I spent years chasing that permanent state of happiness, believing I could pin it down if I just tried harder. I switched jobs, moved cities, dated new people, always thinking the next thing would be the one to make it stick. But every time, the joy faded. The new job became routine. The new city lost its charm. The new relationship hit the same walls. Schopenhauer's truth hit me like a freight train. Happiness isn't a destination. It's a fleeting moment, a pause between desires, and the more you chase it, the more it slips away. Lie number 3. You need others to be happy. The third lie cut the deepest, the idea that happiness depends on other people. Society tells you that you're incomplete without a partner, a family, or a tribe to validate you. Find your soulmate, they say. Build a community. Be loved, and you'll be whole. I bought into this lie hook, line, and sinker. I thought my happiness hinged on being chosen, by a partner, by friends, by society. I spent my 20s bending over backward to be likable, to be needed, to be the guy everyone wanted around. I thought if enough people loved me, I'd finally love myself. But the more I sought validation from others, the more I lost myself. I'd say yes to things I didn't want to do, just to keep people happy. I'd hide my true thoughts to avoid conflict. I'd mold myself into whatever shape I thought would earn me love. And for a while, it worked. People liked me. I had friends, girlfriends, colleagues who praised me. But late at night, when I was alone with my thoughts, I felt like a ghost. Who was I when no one was watching? I didn't know. Schopenhauer saw through this lie with brutal clarity. He argued that relying on others for happiness is a form of enslavement. When you tie your worth to someone else's approval, you hand them the reins of your life. You become a puppet, dancing to their expectations, their moods, their whims. Schopenhauer believed that true contentment, if such a thing exists, comes from within, not from the fickle opinions of others. He warned that the more you seek validation, the more you expose yourself to suffering, because people are unreliable. They leave. They change. They disappoint. I learned this lesson the hard way after a falling out with a close friend. His name was Mark, and we'd been inseparable for years. I thought our friendship was rock solid, that he'd always have my back. But when I went through a rough patch, lost my job, struggled with depression, he started pulling away. I begged him to stay, poured my heart out, tried to be the friend he wanted. But he left anyway. I was devastated, not just because I lost him, but because I built so much of my happiness on his presence. Schopenhauer would have told me I was a fool, not for loving Mark, but for thinking he could carry the weight of my soul. The truth is, no one can carry that weight for you. Not a lover, not a friend, not a family member. When you make your happiness depend on others, you set yourself up for betrayal, not because people are cruel, but because they're human. They have their own struggles, their own desires, their own will driving them. Expecting them to complete you is like asking the wind to stay still. It's not their job to make you whole. It's yours. By the time I hit 30, I was exhausted. Exhausted from chasing success, from believing in permanent happiness, from begging others to validate me. I was done running. That's when Schopenhauer's philosophy stopped being just words on a page and became a lifeline. He didn't offer me a shortcut to happiness. He offered something better, a way to live with the truth. And let me tell you, the truth is not a warm hug. It's a cold blade, cutting through the illusions you've wrapped around yourself. But once you embrace it, you start to feel something new, not happiness, not exactly, but a kind of freedom. A freedom to stop pretending, to stop chasing, to stop being a puppet. Schopenhauer taught me 3 ways to break free from society's lies. First, he said to accept suffering as a teacher. Life is pain, he argued, because the will is never satisfied. The sooner you stop running from that pain, the sooner you can learn from it. I started small. Instead of drowning my loneliness in Netflix or alcohol, I sat with it. I let myself feel the ache, the emptiness, the fear. It was brutal at first, like staring into a void. But over time, I began to see patterns, how my pain pointed to the things I was avoiding, the truths I wasn't ready to face. One night, I sat alone in my apartment, no distractions, just me and my thoughts. I asked myself why I was so afraid of being alone, why I kept chasing things that didn't last. The answer came slowly, painfully. I was afraid of myself. Afraid of the parts of me I'd buried, the insecurities, the doubts, the dreams I'd given up on. Schopenhauer would have said that's where the real work begins, in facing those shadows, not running from them. Suffering isn't the enemy, it's the mirror that shows you who you are. Second, Schopenhauer pointed me toward art and contemplation. He believed that art, music, painting, literature could lift us out of the will's grip, even if just for a moment. I wasn't an artist, but I started listening to music differently. Not just as background noise, but as a way to feel something deeper. I'd put on a Beethoven symphony and let it wash over me, not trying to understand it, just letting it be. I started writing, too, not for anyone else, but for myself. I poured my thoughts onto the page, raw and unfiltered. It wasn't about creating a masterpiece. It was about finding a space where the will couldn't touch me. I remember the first time I felt that release. I was listening to a piano piece, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, and for a few minutes, I wasn't chasing anything. I wasn't thinking about my job, my ex, my failures. I was just there, fully present, fully alive. Schopenhauer called these moments aesthetic contemplation, a glimpse of freedom from the endless cycle of desire. They didn't solve my problems, but they gave me something to hold on to, a way to step outside the treadmill and breathe. Finally, Schopenhauer urged me to live simply and independently. Society wants you to believe that happiness requires more money, more status, more people. But he argued that the less you need, the freer you are. I started cutting things out of my life that didn't matter. I sold the fancy watch, downsized my apartment, stopped going to parties just to be seen. I focused on what I could control, my thoughts, my actions, my values. It wasn't glamorous. It was lonely, sometimes excruciatingly so. But it was real. One of the hardest moments came when I turned down a job offer, a high-paying gig that would have put me back on the success treadmill. My friends thought I was crazy. "You're throwing away your future," they said. But for the first time, I felt like I was choosing my future, not letting society choose it for me. Schopenhauer would have called that a small victory over the will, a step toward living on my own terms. Let me be honest, walking this path isn't easy. Schopenhauer's truth doesn't come with applause or a pat on the back. When you start questioning society's lies, people don't thank you. They push back. They call you cynical, negative, a buzzkill. I felt it firsthand. Friends stopped inviting me out because I wasn't fun anymore. Family members told me I was overthinking life, that I just needed to lighten up. Even strangers on social media called me a downer when I shared my thoughts about happiness. But Schopenhauer warned me this would happen. He said the world doesn't want you to see the truth because the truth threatens the system that keeps everyone in line. Society is built on these lies. It needs you to believe that happiness comes from success, that it's permanent, that it depends on others. Why? Because if you stop chasing, you stop playing the game. You stop buying things you don't need, working jobs you hate, seeking approval from people who don't care. You become a problem, a glitch in the matrix. I saw it in the way people reacted when I started saying no. No to the hustle, no to the drama, no to the endless need to prove myself. They didn't know what to do with me anymore. I wasn't fitting into their script. The hardest part was the loneliness. Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat this either. He said that the path to truth is a solitary one because most people would rather live in illusion than face reality. I felt that isolation acutely. There were nights when I wondered if I'd made a mistake, if I should just go back to the way things were, chasing success, chasing love, chasing approval. But every time I thought about it, I remember the emptiness of that life. The exhaustion. The feeling of being a puppet, pulled by strings I couldn't see. Schopenhauer taught me that this loneliness is a price worth paying. Because when you stand alone, you start to see things clearly. You see the games people play to avoid their own pain. You see the masks they wear to feel safe. You see the lies they tell themselves to keep going. And you realize you're not the problem, you're the mirror. You're reflecting a truth they're not ready to face. And that's when I understood. The people who call you cynical aren't angry at you. They're angry at what you represent, a reminder that their happiness is built on sand. I won't lie to you and say that following Schopenhauer's path made me happy. Happiness, as he taught me, isn't the point. The point is truth. The point is living without illusions, without the weight of society's lies dragging you down. I'm not there yet. I don't know if anyone ever truly is, but I'm closer than I've ever been. I've stopped chasing success for its own sake. I've stopped believing that happiness is a permanent state I can lock in. I've stopped looking to others to complete me. And in letting go of those lies, I've found something else, a quiet strength, a sense of being rooted in myself. Schopenhauer didn't give me a map to happiness. He gave me a compass to navigate reality. He showed me that life is suffering, but it's also a canvas, a place to create meaning, even in the pain. I've started to find that meaning in small moments. A walk in the rain, a line of poetry that hits me just right, a conversation with someone who sees the world as clearly as I'm trying to. These moments aren't happiness in the way society defines it. There's something deeper, a kind of peace, a fleeting glimpse of what it means to be fully alive. The climax of this journey came one evening, sitting on a park bench, watching the sunset. I'd spent the day alone, reflecting on everything I'd lost: jobs, relationships, illusions. For the first time, I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel like I needed to be anywhere else, with anyone else. I was enough. Not because I'd achieved anything great or found the perfect person, but because I'd stopped running. I'd faced the truth, and it hadn't destroyed me. It had freed me. If you take anything from this, let it be this. You don't need society's lies to live a good life. You don't need the corner office, the perfect partner, the endless applause. You need to face yourself, the messy, imperfect, struggling self, and embrace it. Schopenhauer taught me that the only way out is through the pain, through the loneliness, through the lies. And on the other side, you'll find something society can't sell you, a life that's yours, not theirs. I'm not here to tell you what to do with this truth. That's for you to decide. But if Schopenhauer's words have stirred something in you, if you felt the weight of society's lies and want to break free, I'm asking you to do one thing. Share this message. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Not for me, but for the next person who's still chasing a mirage, still believing the lies, still waiting to be set free. Together, we can start a ripple, a movement of people who dare to live with the truth, who dare to stop running and start being. Help me wake up the world, one soul at a time.